you know? So anyway, so that's a bit about me. I've got my dog.
Real quick. Love your dog.
Thanks.
What do you hunt? What's your favorite hunting out there?
Oh, so I like deer on the Eastern Plains. So whitetails are mostly, well, there's whitetail and mule deer out on the Eastern Plains of Colorado. The Eastern Plains are so underrated. I used to have like so much like stigma against it. I'm like, there's nothing out there. The thing is, they don't build the highways around the pretty parts. Okay, they build it in the boring parts. There's so much more to the plains than I ever knew about. So I just love being like one of the few people who are out there just in like the riparian areas, just like the cacophony of like sound of the birds and the critters going around is like incredible to just be out there and sit in that, and like no one knows that it's part of the plains. So I like deer out there.
Well, now you just gave it away to our 2 million listeners out there, so they will be packing into your planes. No, I'm kidding. We don't have 2 million yet. But maybe when Parker comes on, we'll get to 2 million.
A lot of followers, so your viewers.
Okay. So, first off, let me just say, and I've said it all along in the last 5 minutes before you're on as well, we are in awe of your project. So first off, I would like to ask you, Crystal's part of the team that's putting together the digital Green Book. And for anybody who doesn't know about the original Green Book, Crystal, could you just give us a little elevator pitch on the original? I know there's a lot to talk to there, but we only have so much time.
All right. I can do it quick. I'm getting used to it. So the original Green Book was published from the 1930s to the 60s. And basically people would send in lists or a location, like a gas station or a restaurant or a motel that was a safe space for Black travelers to stop on their journeys. And this was needed because Black motorists only started Black motorists actually only started being able to travel openly in the 30s and 40s. And before that, it just wasn't a thing, you know? And so now in an era of segregation and Jim Crow, there are so many spoken rules about segregation, you know, like signs that said white only, Black only for water fountains. But what the scary part is the places where there weren't those signs. And so segregation's horrible all around, but it's unknown locations where it's not obvious that were the real dangers. And so that publication ended with the Civil Rights Act in the 60s because they were like, oh, well, we're not segregated anymore. Black people can go anywhere.
We've solved all the problems.
Yeah, but legal reality and like experienced reality are two totally different things. You know, and so again, it's not that I think that there's like terrible businesses out there just waiting for me to come in and beat me up. It's the unknown, right? It's like, I don't know if that gas station's going to be safe. I don't know if that hardware store in the middle of nowhere is going to be welcoming. And if I just knew for sure, that would be really great.
Absolutely. And you know, it's really interesting to me because I talk to a lot of people of color about experiences in the outdoors. I don't talk to a lot of people of color that hunt. And obviously when you hunt, you're carrying weapons, which makes it even more dangerous in some cases.
Yeah, and that's what kind of started this thought process about starting this project. I was out with my hunting mentor, who's a white male who is very much in the forefront of conservation work and the recruitment, retention, reactivation R3 efforts. And I was like, I've got all these fears. And he's like, well, where's the data to show that? I don't see any data like to show it. And I'm like, how much data do you really need? Like, how many people have to be hurt? How many people have to die? Is it 10? Is it 100? Is it 1,000? And so he was like, well, it's not that I need the data. It's that decisions don't happen without data or economic incentives. So the Green Book is being able to provide that data. So if I'm like, hey, I went to this hardware store in the middle of nowhere and I had a bad experience, maybe I was just a jerk that day. You know, maybe it's on me. But if 80 people of my identity say that same thing in the same hunting season, that's hard data you can't ignore, you know. And then we also really want to make sure to provide resources on the back end once that data is collected. We don't just want to do cancel culture. Like, that's not what this is about. There's a lot of places who don't even realize that they're doing this. You know, it's unconscious, right? But once you know better, then we also want to be able to provide the resources to do better.
So, what would you say was the impetus for starting the Digital Green Book project? Was it? I'm sorry, asking a lot of questions here. Was it a specific event, or was it just, you know, the networking out there and realizing we still have major problems out there, especially in the outdoors, for people of color?
Yeah, so that's where the idea came from, but what put it into action was actually the protests and what happened after George Floyd's murder. What happened is there was this combination of people started listening. So I had a reporter ask us, what was different for you that made you start this? And I was like, it's not what changed in me or what's different in me. It's what's different in you. Like, you're listening. You're giving us this space. You're stopping and pausing and reading. And people have time because of this horrible COVID crap, which is the worst. But I mean, like, people are paying attention now. We've been saying the same thing for a long time. A lot of people have before us for generations, the exact same thing. And the difference is you're paying attention. Everybody else is paying attention. So that's kind of what started it.
So, besides the obvious financial barriers, what do you see as the big barriers in executing this project? Or it's going to be a project that's ongoing, obviously, correct? But can you answer that question? I don't remember what question.
Oh, you know what? I think it's Parker's turn, and that's a really long answer. So
Okay. All right. So, Crystal, I'm going to let you go here. We're going to be